Welcome to Business Today. I'm Siddharth Zarabi and we are continuing our coverage from the World Economic Forum here at Davos. And joining me now is Kiva Allgood, the Managing Director of the World Economic Forum. Welcome to the show, Kiva. You have expertise in one of the subjects that's very, very important and a policy focus back home in India, and that is manufacturing. But the question that I want to start this conversation with is the world of manufacturing. Given that the world trade order seems to have been completely dismantled as we knew it, and therefore just in time is perhaps moving into a new paradigm. What's the future of manufacturing? How will it happen? Will it be a new paradigm that you see evolving?
Well, thank you for having me. Lovely day, and it's great to be here. I don't think anyone can say that they're an expert in manufacturing or supply chain anymore. I think you have to be a student because it changes every day. You know, from my perspective, just in time, again, a philosophy of manufacturing for decades. I think we saw the biggest challenge and the stress to the network when COVID hit. So that was an accelerant. It really gave us the opportunity to think about things a little bit differently. And then you kind of got the next challenge, which is the geopolitical situation and shift. But I would say that the manufacturers and supply chains of the world have always been looking to figure out how do they also make their products more marketable in specific markets. And that journey actually started even before COVID. So you saw made in America or European made. So they had been diversifying their supply chain. They had been trying to think through how can we really set up a different network. Because the best part about manufacturing, it's a very noble, everything around us has been made profession, but it's also super complex. It takes a full value chain from all of the raw materials to the output to being recycled. And it's a lot more complex than often people give it credit for. And I think a lot of governments have leaned into trying to figure that out. So yes, it has changed. The levers are kind of the same. We actually just launched a report really thinking through the 7 kind of things that a country needs to do to be ready to attract foreign direct investment. Those 7 indicators are, you know, pretty instrumental in a lot of the global plans that are out there. So these are things like intelligent infrastructure, talent, policies, access to the supply chain. So it's one thing to put a factory in one location, but you actually also have to be able to attract the full ecosystem in order for it to bring value and be able to produce products at a price point that consumers are willing to pay. So yes, just in time still exists. It just does in a slightly different way. But I also think that this is a journey that manufacturers have been on for decades.
You made this mention about being students at this time, and I want to contextualize that for our viewers as I understand it. For decades now, companies have chosen to go to economies where they could manufacture at scale and possibly at the lowest cost. They knew that there was policy uncertainty. They knew that they would be paying a certain kind of tariffs. They also knew that they would have a zero tariff regime if they had a free trade agreement with that. And it was on a multi-block level basis. All of that seems to be now changing. For companies, especially in India, we're still, as a manufacturing nation, is still not up there comparable to China. What does this new era mean?
Well, I think the fundamental thing that, you know, if you're trying to attract foreign direct investment, you need to realize it isn't just about low-cost labor. Quality plays a big component to it. How sustainable is the manufacturing? Can you get access to clean energy? I think there's some great examples in India. I think the Made in India program is a really good illustration of that. I think having a plan as a country, though, is super important. So, and that means decades worth of investment. I think Tamil Nadu is a great example where they set a really strong strategy and they looked across all 7 of those, you know, indicators and said, we're going to invest in talent, we're going to invest in infrastructure, we're going to invest in clean energy, and we're going to invest to ensure that when a factory or someone comes, that they have enough space for their suppliers to join as well. And I think that's the opportunity. So if you think about, you know, China's ability to really succeed in manufacturing, it is in part because they had a 10-year plan. And they invested in all of those things, including in digital infrastructure. So they made it easy for small and medium-sized enterprises to go digital because it was standardized. So I think those are all opportunities for India as well.
Right here, post-COVID, the first World Economic Forum that happened after COVID, and the term that came into vogue after that, China plus one.
Yeah.
And now we are seeing what change is being driven by United States policy. Two questions to it. Is the world realistically making an attempt to de-risk from China and kind of have a replacement strategy? And the second part is, what is the impact because of the recent changes on the costs that are associated with supply chains? Earlier supply chains were structured around both ease of doing business and the cost of doing business. What has happened as a consequence of the current situation?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was ease of doing business, cost, and then I think it's the reliability. It's the, when you put a factory somewhere, it's a multi-million, often billion-dollar investment. Your return on investment is going to come 10, 20, 30 years later. So you need to have confidence that you're going to be able to have access and ship and that confidence is equally, in the reliability of that, is equally as important nowadays. I also think there's the reality of most decisions are also made on local consumption. Can you manufacture, because it's a lot less expensive to produce something and then only ship it within a country than it is to put it on a freight and send it back out. So I think that capacity planning component of it is a critical ingredient. But I also think that perhaps we need to ask the question a little bit differently. Yeah. And I think that is, where is manufacturing going? We have lots of industries, right? Let's take semiconductors, for example. A lot of that's done with a few really amazing, semiconductor manufacturers on behalf of people who do the design work. You're going to start to see that as well. So I think that is an emerging opportunity for a lot of markets, including India. So, I think often we look at the way things were done in the past, and then we try to replicate them. But you're now starting to see the emergence of production for one. Like being able, not as much volume, but more specialized products. And you're definitely going to start to see that in biomanufacturing as well. So if my advice for countries is to look forward. What is it that you really want to be known for, right?
What should India be looking forward to?
Yeah, I mean, I think India has so much strength technically. It's got an amazing talent pool. I think, very, very high quality engineers. I mean, obviously India produces, I think, an equal amount as other countries. So lean into that. And amazing work on the DPI. You've now digitally enabled people who really didn't have that capability. How can you do that on the industrial landscape, right? How can you do that in a way that makes it easier to get access at a factory floor level to connectivity, and that's standardized? And you're providing the small and medium-sized enterprises with the tools so that they can scale as quickly as the larger folks as well.
For a decade or so, till recently, the Indian government used import tariffs as a policy measure to change behavior and try and promote local manufacturing. That trade policy has now changed, and we are currently engaged in a dozen and a half free trade negotiations. In all of this, what is it in terms of the policy approach that you would advocate India to follow, and what would be that one thing that you believe would be a mistake to try and do?
Well, I told this story the other day because someone asked a similar question, and it was, if you think about the advent of automobiles, right? It happened in Europe, and the first car came out, and there was a union, right? Because it used to be carriage. So the carriage union said, wait a minute, no, they're going too fast. So they put a policy in place to say you can manufacture cars here, but they can't go more than 5 miles an hour. You want to know what happened? The manufacturing moved someplace else. Yeah. So I think that's a really good lesson. And I think the most important thing that policy must address is you have to have a clear problem statement. What is the problem you're trying to solve? Is it that you're trying to create employment? If you're trying to create jobs, then I would probably answer the question very differently. If you're trying to solve a food need, that's a very different question. So I think policies have to reflect clearly an approach to a problem, and then have clarity on what that problem is. And I'd also advocate for the fact you need to bring industry in before the policy is made. I think one of the key things we've heard all week long, to be honest with you, is often, governments will say, here's the policy, give us feedback. It's often too late. Like, solicit the input at the beginning of the process to understand how you can deliver on that outcome together, both industry and government, and then develop a policy that works to deliver against that. So,
Kiva, you mentioned jobs. And in the age of AI, increasing automation, robotics, emerging markets, including in India, there is a belief that promoting manufacturing will in some ways provide a pathway, a reliable pathway for jobs for tens of millions of youth. But is that possible in the evolving technological paradigm? I sometimes feel that they're both at cross purposes. This desire to use manufacturing as a job creator versus the way manufacturing itself is changing.
Yeah, I get that question all the time. And I think they look at, factories that are lights out. The reality is there are some things that can be manufactured that are highly technical that, you still always need a human in the loop, though. You still need someone in the network operations center making decisions to understand if things are flowing properly. I think the opportunity, though, manufacturing isn't dirty, dangerous, and ugly anymore, right? It is actually, you can be a robot fleet manager, and it takes different skills. So there's an ability to really look at those roles in a different way and those career paths and build on them. I also, there's this, it's a noble profession. Like when you build things, if you work in a pharmaceutical plant and you're creating, drugs for cancer treatment, you're saving someone's life. Yeah. There's nobility to the craft, and I truly do believe in that. And I think that it also has a lot of purpose. And so, yes, you will see more automation, but the automation is going to occur in the jobs that are repetitive and not as interesting, and that also then creates more jobs that work around that automation. They go hand in hand. Every study that's been done, whether you look at the automations that's occurred in Amazon's logistics centers, it's actually created better, more meaningful jobs on the other end. In almost every market, you have to see an industrial revolution. That's how you kind of pick and build the middle class. And I think India is going to go through that same process, right? But I actually believe, because of the quality of the education and the number of engineers, that they're going to do it more mindfully and actually create jobs that are more robust.
Okay, as we wind down this conversation, I want to ask you, fourth day of this forum, and out of all the deliberations, apart from the headline speeches that have gone viral, what is the crux that we can draw away, and take away in terms of how this forum and the interactions have helped perhaps better prepare CEOs for the world that they live in?
Yeah, being a CEO is a very lonely place. It's hard to be able to say, I'm doing these things right, or I feel vulnerable about this, or I'm not really sure about what decision to make in this situation. And I think Davos provides the opportunity to have those dialogues. It's Chatham House, it's small. People aren't here necessarily to win a battle or to make a decision. Yeah. They're here to really enhance their knowledge on a topic. They're here to make those connections to be able to make a better decision. And it's a very unique place that provides CEOs, to be honest with you, with a safe place to become more informed.
Absolutely. It's normally extremely cold, much colder than many of the conversations that I've been having, but the sun's been shining on our back, and you can perhaps see that reflect in the halo around us. Kiva, thank you very much for your time with us. We'll wrap up this conversation, but we'll continue to get you more voices from industry and from the World Economic Forum as we go along. As I come back, I will again bring a great voice to you. Until then, goodbye.